Lesson 6, finishing touches. Okay, when you finish your project, there are a few things you want to do to make sure that your project has a nice polished finished look. One of them is to take care of these yarn tails. I'm using a standard yarn needle. It's blunt, okay? It's not too sharp. If it's too sharp, it could split the yarn threads. And I just take my needle and I take my yarn tail, and this has a front and a back, so I just kind of thread the tail in, and then I can trim it off. If I wanted a double-sided item like a blanket, I would just thread it into the middle of the stitches, okay, and hide it. And then I can trim it off. Now, let's say you want to give your piece a nice finished look. You can see how the top stitches on this square, the sample square, are all even. And then the sides where we turned it are kind of rough sides. And then the bottom is, we're going to work on the back of the foundation chain. Okay, and we want all of it to look nice and neat, just like the top. And one thing I forgot to show is how you actually tie off at the end of your project. So I'm going to show you that right now. So I'm just going to do a few stitches here. Let's say you're working along and you get to your very last stitch at the end of the row and you would like to tie off, okay? All you do is simply one chain, cut your thread right here and pull through, okay? Sometimes I like to do 2 chains, cut my thread and pull through, and a knot will form. So that is how you tie off your yarn. Now, let's say I'm going back to this square and I want it to have a finished look on all 4 sides. I started off with a border around the top, and what I'm going to do in order to turn the corner is I'm going to insert my hook in the same corner spot, and I'm going to do 3 single crochets. That allows me to turn the corner. Now I'm ready to work on this rough edge. So basically I'm just inserting my hook evenly spaced along the side and making my stitches. I want to make sure I space them evenly so that the project lies flat. And also, since this is a square, I want to make sure I have the same amount of stitches on this side as I have on this side. Okay, so that's pretty much how to make a finished off border for your project. And if I was going to sew this on as an applique, I would just take my yarn needle and sew around the outside edge. You can use a basic running stitch, you can use a back stitch, you can use pretty much whatever you like. It also depends on whether you are doing a 3D item, like this guy here. He's my little owl. So what I did on my owl is I made the appliques, I sewed around the outside, and with my yarn needle, I just poked it through after I tied it off and trimmed it, and then all the yarn ends are hidden inside the owl. What I also did with this is I used 2 pieces, this is made in rows, and then I worked a single crochet all around the outside edge to sandwich the 2 front and back pieces together. As you can see on the wings, I worked the single crochet around the outside of the wing. In that manner, it gives it a nice smooth look. Okay, I did not do that on the eyes because the eyes were round and the outside edge of the eyes already has a nice round border. There aren't rough edges, but when you're working in rows, there are rough edges, so you want to do it to kind of polish it off. Okay, now let's say you want to do a nice border for an item like a blanket. Here is a border that I did. So I made my center of my blanket, and then I did a single crochet border, and then I added a nice shell decoration. Okay, there are instructions in the written part of this lesson about how to do the shell. Basically, I did a single crochet, I skipped a stitch, and then I worked 5 double crochets into 1 stitch. That creates a nice shell border. Another way to complete a border is to do reverse stitches. Okay, so here we have some reverse stitches. This is a blanket that I worked with 2 strands. I used double strands to make it nice and thick in the center. And then for the last border row, see how it looks like a cord? I used 1 strand and I used a reverse stitch. All right, now I'm going to show you in detail the reverse stitch because it can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to grab my sample. Okay, so I have just some green right here, and I'm going to do it in orange so you can see the contrast. go ahead and connect my yarn. Connect it like that with a slip stitch. And then a chain 1. Okay, just bring it in. So normally we work our stitches from this side to this side. Okay, going this way. And I apologize to all the left-handed folks out there because I'm right-handed and I'm not skilled enough to show you a left-handed example. So I'm going to show the right-handed example. In reverse crochet, if you're right-handed, you go from this side to this side. So what you want to do is you insert your hook to the right, to the stitch on the right, then you pull up a loop. When you pull up the loop, it's going to look a little bit twisted, and that's okay. The loop you pull up is on the left of the original loop on the hook. Then you grab your yarn and pull it through. Let's do it again. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, and pull through both. This is the reverse single crochet. Insert your loop, pull it up, keeping that new loop to the left, and pull through. You can see how it's starting to make a nice cord. When you work reverse stitches, it should be the last row because obviously you can't really work stitches on top of that cord. So you can use this to finish off, the bottom of around a hat or a scarf or a blanket or the bottom of a skirt, pretty much anything where it's the last row. There's also some other stitches you can do with reverse. You can do some fancy things. You can do a reverse half double crochet where you would wrap the yarn around the hook, then insert your hook, pull up a loop. My focus is not working so well. There we go. Now that loop that I pulled up is on the left of the other loops. Then pull through. Now I could do something like I could chain 1 and skip a stitch, do another reverse half double to kind of spread out my cord, chain 1, skip 1, a reverse half double. Okay, so there's a little bit thicker of a cording. I did a reverse half double crochet, chained 1, skipped 1, and continued along. So you can see the different variety of things that you can do with cords. So as you work, just make sure you finish your project off nice and neat, and happy hooking to you. Thanks for watching.